Here. Doing this test really quick. A, I'm bored. B, I'm interested. People will not work hard in countries where they cannot get. No, it's not entirely true. It's just more about the biggest problem. I'll go strongly straight. I think the biggest problem with this is that people won't want to do work that they're not satisfied with. It's not that people won't do work to get rich. Like if you can't get rich at a job, like I don't think that's a driving factor. That's a driving factor to some sociopaths. Some people, right? They just want to work to make a fuck ton of money. But for the most part, I think it just comes down to a balance of like the money you make from the job and like the enjoyment of the job. So if you're not making a fuck ton of money from a job and your life won't relatively change depending on the job you take, then you want to work the best job for yourself as you can, because it doesn't really like change much, right? So for example, if a garbage collector and a accountant make around the same money, there's not much incentive to work as a garbage collector, because an accountant, like, now accountant needs a lot more education, so maybe that's not the same, like maybe you can find differences there. But again, you know, if everything's paid for, why don't you go get an education, become an accountant? That job's a lot easier for you. You know, your status of living doesn't change that much. Like maybe you have a system where you basically live the same life as long as you're like a student and stuff like that. So you can live without working, you know, as long as you're a student, blah, blah, blah. So you become a student, you become an accountant, and then your life is like a lot easier than you being a trash collector. So how do you get people to work as trash collectors? Right now, you just pay them. You pay them now. Also, right now you can get trash collectors because sometimes people just don't have the education for a different job, but you pay them really well and you give them a lot of days off, and you know, you give them a lot of incentives to do their job. Now maybe in where wages aren't a thing, you just give them more days off. You give them, well, no, you wouldn't give them more benefits because you would want to give also everyone else those same benefits. So you can't really give them more benefits because everyone would also have the same like dental and health and whatnot benefits. So maybe you can get more days off as a trash collector than anyone else, and then maybe that's how you incentivize it. You go, hey, you only have to work this many days of the year. The only problem with that is that you need a lot of trash collectors. Because like, so for example, right, if you only had to work 3 months of the year as a trash collector, it's like, oh cool, but now you need 4 times the amount of workers. Instead of just having one trash collector that works the whole year, you would need 4 trash collectors to work the whole year. So you need a lot more to justify the having people only work so little. And maybe that's possible, you can do that, but I don't know. That's the only way I can think about it. But yeah, I don't think this statement is true. People will not work hard in countries if they can't get rich. No, it's just about like the enjoyment of your job. If you don't enjoy your job, you're not going to do it. Oh, this test isn't showing up. Hold on. It is the government's responsibility to provide its citizens with housing. Sure. But like, what does that look like is a bigger question. Because for me, it'd be like basically really shitty housing. Like you wouldn't want to live there if you can afford not to. It's just a roof over your head basically is what I would want. Like super 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 low quality condominiums, just giving a roof over somebody's head. That's like the basic I would want. Like for homeless people and stuff like that. Like, you know. Yeah. So I don't know. So that's a weird question because it doesn't really talk about the level. Like, what is housing? What does it mean? Anyways. Should be no such thing as privately owned? No, that's not true. They just can't, they shouldn't be profitized. Like social media actually, well, social media platforms can be that's like Twitter, Facebook, social media platforms can make as much money as they want and be private. Like, who the fuck cares about that? Also, it also avoids them a lot of sticky situations. Like, if Twitter was freely accessible to everyone, like if Twitter was a government run thing, then you would have to respect people's like freedom of speech rights. So like people like Alex Jones wouldn't be banned, or like Donald Trump wouldn't be banned. But since it's a private company, they actually can be banned. So yeah. The government should not meddle in economic affairs by dictating a minimum wage, mandatory retirement age, and so on. I want to say the government doesn't have to do this, but, and the reason I say that is because, like, well, okay, there could be another system, another way that works. So, right, in Scandinavian countries, they have like really powerful unions, and so they would just decide this stuff, and unions are run by people. So then you don't even need a government to do it. The people are doing it for themselves. So in that regard, you don't need a government to do that. But if you don't have that, if you don't have those powerful unions, then yeah, having a government do that for you is good. And then, but the one thing though, with the minimum wage thing is that is dependent on like the size of your nation, and like, are your regions very different? So should the federal, like for me in Canada, should the federal government be setting a minimum wage? No. Provincial governments can set whatever the fuck minimum wage they want, and they should be able to do that. That's fine, because there should be a minimum wage in like Ontario. Like a minimum wage in Ontario is very different than minimum wage in Alberta or Saskatchewan or British Columbia. Right, they're very, very different. I mean, even then, it's a little bit tough because, like, in different regions of Ontario, you can have wildly different income needs. But shrinking it down to provincial level or a state level in the United States, I think is good. I'll go disagree, because mandating retirement age, I think, is like a thing that the government should probably do. Because, you know, now this has to be in conjunction with a retirement plan provided by the government as well that allows you to retire at that age. Because if they set a mandatory retirement date and there's no plan to actually like have people retire, it's fucked. So of course that has to go with something, but yeah, it's close enough. These questions are a little bit weird, but it's okay. Women and minorities cannot truly be themselves while they live in a society run by a white man. I know what they're getting at. The problem is that can't this just be flipped? Like, I could say agree to this. If I agree to this, there's no solution, because if a society is run by minorities and men and women, then men cannot truly be themselves. So I'd have to disagree, because, like, yes, there has to be a possible way that everyone can be who themselves, regardless of who is running society. But I'm trying to think of like what kind of question is this meant to be. I'm assuming what it means is like today, can, like, if I were to think about this question right now, I would say not really. Like, I would mostly agree with this, I would think, right now, because it's harder for women and minorities to be themselves in the current society we live by. But is that a function of white men? I don't know. And could that be solved while white men are mostly in power? Yes. So that's the problem. Is that, like, we can have the same exact distribution of like race and gender in all of our society, and this problem could still be solved. I'm gonna go there. The market is general. Yeah, probably. At allocating resources. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's super 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 hard for you to predict somebody's needs. So like yeah, just having the kind of the market kind of figure that shit out is a little bit better than, because I think it gives us a better idea. I'm trying to think of like how it. So a good example might be um well, housing. Um, no, maybe housing wouldn't be a good one because it's really easy for you to just count your population and build a house for everybody. But um, oh no no no. Okay, sorry. Allocating resources. Like okay, so we're talking about. Yeah, no, I would have to say yes to this anyways, but it's hard to find an example. So for allocating resources, no, hmm. Because I'm thinking of your rare earth metals. So one of the issues that could happen with a centrally planned economy is that you might think that your population needs something. You, the government, think that your population needs one thing, and it turns out they don't need that thing at all, and you just wasted a fuck ton of time developing and building that thing that nobody needs. So, in an essentially planned economy, right, we might go, okay, um, we need to solve climate change right the fuck now. So we're gonna stop 90% of oil production. We're just not gonna take that resource out of the ground now. Okay, fuck it. But then suddenly your entire fucking economy crashes the next day because, oh shit, right, all of our fucking cars run on oil. All of this runs on oil. Fucking plastic bags are fucking made from byproducts of oil. So much shit is made from oil. So stopping that resource from getting out into like the, you know, uh, out into demand. Yeah, we need to like move away from that stuff. But just like turning off the tap can be devastating because there's just so much shit that you have no idea what it affects. It's hard to bring up like a good example, but basically the best way to kind of show it is that you might, as a centrally planned body, choose to cut something off. You're like, okay, we don't need X resource as much. We don't need that much resource. Like, oh, for years we were like, taking this much resource out of the ground. I don't think we really need it. We can use this instead, or we don't need that much anyways. And then you do that, and there's like a domino effect where it turns out that, oh fuck, this like resource, like we were actually on a pivot point where if you took any less of this resource, suddenly this whole section of our economy like fucking freaks out. Um, and a market like generally can deal with that because like you just don't worry about it. Like just the market kind of deals with that basically. But it's hard to describe that in terms of resources. Um, yeah, because you can also take allocation of resource in terms of like climate change, and we can look at stuff. With socialist countries, if you just think you need a resource and you vote that you need that resource can be detrimental to your society, but you don't care because you just say you need it. And you can like pollute just as well as like markets pollute, quote unquote. I don't know, it's tough. Yeah, I'm gonna go with like lightly agree. I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's one of those. I just need to know like the details of the question. What does it mean? But using brain imaging or genometric sequencing to legitimize race or gender stereotypes can never be scientifically justified. Wait, what? The fuck? Using brain imaging or genomet I think it's supposed to be genometric sequencing, but it's genomic genome sequencing. I think that's supposed to be genome. You either say genome or you see genometric sequencing, not genomic. But genome sequencing to legitimize race or gender stereotypes can never be scientifically justified. What? What does that mean? Is it trying to say, oh God, is it trying to say like, oh, if it's possible, is it trying to ask, is it possible to scan somebody's brain and, legitimize certain stereotypes? Like maybe there's a gene in there that causes women to drive poorly, right? Would that ever be scientifically justified? Well, if it turns out there is a gene that does that, then yeah, wouldn't it? I feel like that's not the question it's asking. Or is it just saying the whatever black IQ test they did, where they tested a bunch of African Americans or people just directly from Africa, and they're like, oh look, they have lower IQs, therefore, that justifies all of this stuff. Like, oh, black people just have lower IQs than white people, ignoring that, like, they don't have access to proper schooling and blah 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 blah. They're from poor nations, so education is harder to come by. So of course their IQs are going to be lower. Is that what it's asking? Right? That can't be justified, because that's true. Just scanning somebody's brain, going, oh, they have lower. Oh, look, we scanned all humans across the earth, and it turns out that white people have the highest IQs. Therefore, white people inherently have the highest IQs. No, of course that can't be justified. But if we were somehow capable of doing a total brain scan of like the brain, and it turns out that we found a gene that causes women to be shit at driving, that would be scientifically justified. I think I'm gonna have to disagree on this. I think the first thing or the second thing I said is what, like the black people getting tested having lower IQ thing. I think that's what it's asking. That can't be justified. There should be no such thing as should it? No. Economic growth will be better. How is that a socialist question? What the fuck? Economic growth will better help. Oh my god. Economic growth will better help people climb out of poverty than welfare. Well, you can tie welfare to economic growth. Like the reason why you are capable of having a welfare state is because of economic growth. These are tied, as long as you make them tied. You can have them untied, where economic growth, you just have economic growth and you have no welfare programs to help people who are disenfranchised. But you need both. You can't have a welfare program and no economic growth. You'd be fucked. You'd lose money, and you have to blow up all your welfare programs. I will put disagree, because I get the question they're trying to ask, right? Our GDP is this high, therefore people are better off in our society regardless of our welfare state. Like, no, that's not true. I'll say disagree on that. Oh, see, like, this is dog shit. This is more central planning stuff, and this is dog shit. Because companies aren't making the same tire, the same wrench, the same cables. They're not. They're all making similar products, but they're slightly different. One might be a little bit cheaper. One company might try a cheaper material, or they have this new, like, that's the whole point of the market, is that, yeah, things might seem very similar. The difference between an Intel CPU and a Ryzen CPU might be very similar, but there's enough of, I mean, that's kind of a bad example because there are pretty big differences between the two, but something like that, right, where you need that difference to kind of allow for innovation. If the government steps in because, like, oh, everyone's making a similar car, well, now they're literally going to be exactly the same. There might never be any innovation because there's no competition to see who can make the cheapest, fastest car, whatever. So, oh, guys, we hit a rut. All cars are the same now. They're all sedans. Okay, well, let's just make the government make a fuck ton of sedans. You can do that if you want, as like here's your economy car. If it's, now this shouldn't happen because we shouldn't give away cars, because we should just do public transportation, because giving away people cars would be detrimental, like to the environment, and cause a lot of traffic. So you should build up public transportation and bike lanes and stuff like that. But let's say, for example, right, that was a necessary thing where you needed to give out cars to people. Then yeah, the government can step in, make their car. They go, hey, can we get us information from all these companies? Okay, this is how you make a car. We'll make a very cheap, reliable car. It'll be the exact same car over and over and over again. We'll just make a bunch of them. It'll be cheap, reliable, and yeah, like this is the baseline car. If you can't otherwise afford a car, you get this at like a reduced rate or potentially free, right? Because it's necessary for your survival. You can do that, but other than that, no, you should. Because companies aren't always making the same exact thing. Well, they never are, actually. It's not almost. They never are. What's a good example of something that's like very similar but different? Well, you have like Yeti. You have these like Yeti cups, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Oh, I have it upstairs. But then I have another one that's the same technology, but it's like slightly different. Like the Yeti has a lot more space in between, so maybe the seal is a little bit better. The other one I have is like different. It's got like less space and blah blah blah. Like people do stuff differently. So, and the Yeti might be more expensive because it has that extra space in between. You got to make sure that the things all line up and whatnot. And the other mug I have upstairs can be cheaper, but still like relatively effective, like effective enough. Like maybe this keeps stuff hot for 24 hours, but the other one I have upstairs only keeps stuff hot for 12 hours. Well, do you need to keep things hot for 24 hours? Probably not, so you go with this option instead of that option. Inheritance is not a legitimate form of wealth. I want to say no. But like if you make enough money that your family doesn't have to do anything for the rest of their lives, basically, for the next like couple generations, I don't see anything wrong with that. As long as like let's say we now maybe that stuff would just go away depending on like how you can tax stuff so that everyone can kind of have like that similar experience. Of course, like it becomes less of a legitimate form of wealth the more kind of like inequality you have almost, where like okay, it's kind of bullshit that if your daddy or your grandfather made X bajillions of dollars, now you get to live for free and I live for like shit for the rest of my life. Like that's kind of bullshit. But you know, if we live in a society where your basic needs are all taken care of and you can actually just not even work and live a normal life, then like I don't really give a fuck about inheritance at that point, because like whatever amount of money you inherit, like it doesn't really matter because the baseline level is the same. Like I could be doing no work and I live a pretty normal life, and you do absolutely no work and you just live a much more lavish life because one of your parents did something. Like you know, hopefully that makes sense. Like they're both like more legitimate at that point because everyone's basic needs are taken care of. So then whatever else happens after that, I don't really give a fuck. I would say like again, so then that leads me to thinking about right now, it's not as much of a legitimate form of wealth, I would say. There are certain kinds of no. If that like if people want to buy dumb shit, they can buy dumb shit. I can think of things that shouldn't be in production, okay? Fuck, I don't know, whatever. Anything that I don't like shouldn't be in production. Yeah, I can think of a million things that probably don't need to be bought and sold by people, but people are buying and selling them. So, who the fuck? Oh, like, any of the Skama's like brand shit. Like you might see like oh this thing increases your ability to breathe. Like you know you can take deeper breaths and stuff like that. And all it is like peppermint. So like it just feels like okay, it's bullshit. Like that probably doesn't need to be sold. But like I'm not an idiot who's buying that. So again, it's like if enough systems are set up so that like people are more capable of freely making a choice, then yeah. Or like if your society is educated enough, then yeah, like it doesn't really matter what luxury goods. Like if you want to be a dumbass and buy some luxury good that you don't need, oh, like Supreme bricks or whatever. If you want to be an idiot, or NFTs or Bitcoin, or like if you want to be a guy that buys that stuff, like go for it. If it makes you money and stuff like that, and you're like whatever, like well, who the fuck am I to like give a fuck about that? Why the fuck would I give like ban Bitcoin or ban NFTs or ban fucking Supreme bricks or like sneakers? Like sneakers I find is like relatively cool, but I don't really need to buy $300-$400 sneakers. Like I don't give a fuck. But like if someone wants to give a fuck about that, then go for it. Like I buy fucking cards, okay? I have Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and like yeah. So if I like someone might view that as a luxury good that shouldn't be produced because it's like almost gambling. So yeah, I can't agree with that. Producing luxury goods that are merely playthings for rich may be justified if doing so leads to innovation that may also benefit the poor. I want to say yes, and because this thing makes me think of like, oh, Jeff Bezos going to space. Well, if enough rich people just want to burn their money going to space, well, it could lead to innovation that helps us with space travel, or some form of innovation that helps us on the ground here. Like maybe we develop like more efficient solar panels because a lot of space equipment requires solar panels to power them because there's no wind, there's nothing. They only have the sun. So potentially more efficient solar panels get developed because of the space travel that we need to do. Um, the technology required to send us to Mars would probably benefit us here on Earth in some way because that would require a tremendous amount of technology. So yeah, maybe it starts out as a plaything for rich people. Just, oh, I'm going to burn my money and fly myself to space. But maybe it helps us. So I'm sure. I'll go with like more fully agree. The unequal power relation between business owners and workers in a capitalist economy is inherently exploitative. No. The reason I say this is because of this conversation I've had with like a bunch of other people. Is that same power dynamic could exist in a not capitalist system. Somebody may not be like owning someone might not like own your company, but someone gets elected to be the president of your company, whatever, and they can be just as exploitive to the minority of workers at your workplace than a capitalist owner could be, right? So you get into a job and you have a bunch of minorities working, and they are also a minority at the company, so all the like the white people that work there vote for some president that like gives them extra time off and stuff like that. You get to you can have your time off here, but oh, like these minority workers, whatever, like they're the janitors and stuff like that, and you have to work the extra hours, or it doesn't even have to be like minority workers in terms of race. It could just be like the new people, anyone that's new here, like the rookies and stuff. Yeah, we're gonna fuck them over. Um, anyone who's worked here for 10 plus years, you get all the benefits and stuff like that. You barely have to work. And the temps, the temp guys, fuck them. This is they get a vote too, but that we completely outclass them. So any like you if I would agree to this, then I'd have like any power dynamic is inherently exploitative. So and yeah, I could agree with this, but it doesn't really help the cause because it's just doomer at that point. Like no system would work. If yeah, there should be no such thing as private ownership of land. See, this one's a weird one because a lot of like socialist types will say that, oh no, you still have fuck. I think they call it personal property versus private property. So like you can still have personal things, like your house would be personally yours, and my computer, my camera, my phone, whatever. Those would all be personal properties, but you wouldn't have any private properties. And to me, there's no fucking difference between either of those things. So I'm gonna go with no. Sure. If it can. The problem is it if it can. If it can, that sounds like a great idea. If it can't, if that's not a possible thing, I have no idea the reality of this thing. This just sounds like a good idea, so I'll like mostly agree with it. I have no idea if it's possible to do this. But that's like the point of this quiz, I think, right? The production of goods and services should not be determined by whether or how much people are willing to pay for them, but by whether people have a need for them. That depends. Well, wait, this is talking about the production. Because in terms of production, somebody's willingness to pay for something and somebody's need for something are tied. And that's where the government steps in, because you can exploit that and make people pay more because their need for it is so high. Because the production of something should be based on, I'm going to say agree, because production is already, even in a capitalist system, is already based off of quote unquote needs. It's needs and wants, they're kind of tied, but that's still the same thing. Whatever you're willing to pay is how you'll get like a thing. But again, that can be exploited in certain ways. So I would say agree, just because like the government should step into any of those exploitative areas. So healthcare, maybe even housing, they can step in a little bit there. Schooling, maybe they can step in a little bit there. Like, you know. Society as a whole gets more wealthy. Wealth will eventually trickle. Nope. Government should work to reduce all inequalities based on race, gender. Sure. There's a heart. Wait, there is at heart a conflict between the interests of the private business and the interests of society. No. So at heart, inherently, there's a conflict of interest between businesses and society. There can be, and that's where like the government needs to step in, right? So somebody has a monopoly over things and they just charge workers. Society has a need for something and like they control whatever. It's like, yeah, I'll go with this. The government spending with the aim of creating jobs is generally a good idea. I think so. But I'm wondering if this is like kind of one of those questions like Bernie's plan for like a jobs guarantee isn't 100% like good and honest, because for example, okay, let's say there's a jobs program and you have a job guarantee that you can be guaranteed a job in construction, and you would be building infrastructure. Okay, so a bunch of people do that and we finish infrastructure, and that infrastructure stuff gets finished in 10-20 years. Okay, now 20 years later, when all the infrastructure is done being constructed, what do you do with all of those workers? Well, it was a guarantee for a job. So can you get rid of it? Like, no. So they would keep it, and now you have a bunch of construction workers on payroll that don't have any work to do, or very minimal work to do, which can go disastrously. I would say yes, though, just because I don't think that's really what the question is asking. I think it's just like, okay, if the government spends money, you know, we spend all this money to acquire X amount of solar panels. Now we need a bunch of people to install them. Well, now there's the job market open for you. I think that's okay. Or just in terms of coronavirus, right? I mean, it didn't really directly create jobs, but we spend a fuck ton of money in Canada on paying people to stay home and stuff like that, so that the pandemic can be over, so that like that goes towards like jobs. I would say like yes. Sure. Luxury goods should not be produced until every member of society is fed, housed, and clothed. Ooh. I want to say yes, but like I want to say yes because I think this is already like a thing. So let's talk about the United States. Well, everyone is fed because no one dies of starvation in the United States. You can die of malnutrition because you are eating the wrong kinds of foods. But like there's a food bank. You can go there. You can get your nutrition that you need. And by the way, malnutrition is typically in kids. So your parents are feeding their kids fucking garbage meals and then they die. That's like typically the stat for malnutrition in the United States. So no one dies of hunger. People die of malnutrition because their parents don't know how to fucking feed them. So everyone is already fed. Housed? No. Clothed? Kind of. Right? You can get clothes from Salvation Army and stuff like that. I don't know how about that in the States, but in Canada for the most part, yeah. And then housed probably needs some work, but again, that's a tough one. Like, how does that work? So I want to say I agree, but because like I think that's mostly accomplished already, and like a little bit of work here and there can be done, but you know that can come through time and you know the prosperity of your country and if we can figure out how to do it. Like I think that we can house everybody in like a house or a home, I should say, not really a house, but a home. But like, would that be quote unquote enough for like you know the people this test might be made for or whatever? Like I don't think so because it'd be very basic. Not like prison cell level, but like pretty fucking close. Like a bed, a fridge, a shower, and a bath, like a toilet and shower. Like that'd be the home. It'd be bed, fridge, a desk, maybe a TV, uh, and then like a shower and a toilet and like a kitchen-ish area. Uh, and like that'd be it. Like maybe not even a fucking kitchen, and you would have like the whole apartment complex would have a soup kitchen thing where you can go down and you get your food that way. And then you just have a fridge upstairs to you know have water and stuff like that or whatever, or like maybe again that's one of the things you go out into the hall to get water and stuff like that. Whatever is more common. Like it would be very, 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 very basic, but people would have a roof over their head and like have an address to be able to put their name towards and stuff like that. I'm gonna say no. For one thing that just popped in my brain, luxury goods can help you with this. So we think about textiles. So like what, no country that would produce textiles can't because those are considered luxury goods. So like fucking like Cuba's fucked because cigars are considered a luxury good. Like, oh fuck, well we can't produce any of this stuff. We can't produce the only fucking thing in our nation because it's a quote unquote luxury good. Shit, we're fucked. So yeah, I think this is just like too Americanized. Like in the States, like you don't really need to make luxury goods. You make it like goods you need because you have all the resources to do that. But places like um Cuba or you know textiles in the like Indonesia and stuff like that. Like those are all quote unquote luxury goods that they all produce because it's the only thing they can produce because their land is rich in that resource. So that's like the number one export is like tobacco. Or the number one export is like silk or whatever. Like countries that do that, those are all luxury goods they produce, and that's the only thing they do produce. Right? So it's like, oh, so like Saudi Arabia can exist, and Saudi Arabia is good because oil isn't a quote unquote luxury good. It's a resource. Like they're good. They don't have anyone fed or clothes or anything, but they're good because they're not making luxury goods. They can exist. Oh, but Cuba, I'm sorry, you're fucked because you can't make cigars anymore or whatever the main export is. Like, okay, what is the main export of Cuba? So their main exports are refined fuel, sugar, tobacco, nickel, and pharmaceuticals. So like sugar and tobacco, gone. Those are luxuries, right? Or like Indonesia main exports. Yeah. Oh, okay. Indonesia is a lot better of an example. So they export oil and gas that can stay, minerals that might be able to stay, crude palm oil probably can't stay, electrical appliances and rubber. Oh no, they don't actually do that much. So sorry, maybe I'm thinking of the other place. Because it says that they actually their exports are only 20% of their GDP. The rest is what? Anyways, if any nation has like a large exporting, like a large part of their economy is based on exports of textiles and other luxury goods, like they could get fucked by this. So I have to go disagree. Healthcare is a right that the government owns. Yeah, sure. The free market is almost the most effective way of organizing the economy known to man. Known to man? Known to man? Why do you load the question like this? I'm gonna say yes because like yeah. For now, it's the best one. It seems. Another one wants to come up. It should just blow it out of the water, right? I don't know. This is another weird, almost loaded question. So if I were to think about this, okay. Okay, we can think about this in a couple ways. Now, on like a face level, you go, well, yeah, if they, they should have half the wealth just because like everything should be split 50-50 right down the middle. It's like, well, why? Like, why? If we're all humans, like we're all humans, all humans should have equal, like, all humans should carry all human wealth. Well, we already do. So like that's fine. So should we split it down like a gender line? Probably we don't need to, right? Like if if it just turns out that the society kind of lands on, one gender having more wealth than the other, like I don't really give a fuck. If all like I can think of a society where everything is perfectly like not equal, of course, because that would kind of defeat the whole thing, but everything's like equitable, men and women have the exact same opportunities to do whatever job they want and blah 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 blah. Everything, not everyone's making the exact same wages, of course, like uh basically like the world is how it is now, but everyone has like equal opportunity to get whatever job they want. So anyone on the planet can get a job, no matter what. It doesn't even matter about your parents. It doesn't matter about anything. If anyone in the world could get whatever job they wanted to, I think my headphones just turned off because of. Yeah. Okay. If anyone in the world can get whatever job they wanted to, then it's hard for me to say. Fuck you. It's hard for me to justify like, oh, like everything is you have the exact same opportunity, and then it turns out that men just hold more wealth than women for whatever fucking reason, just almost randomly, or women hold more wealth than men. I can't see me being like, that's this is fucking horrible. We need to stop this. Like, if it naturally gets to like this, then like fine. I don't know. I don't really care. We'll like somewhat disagree because like I can think of a society where we're all perfectly fine and perfectly equal, and everyone lives like the best life they can, and everyone is maximally happy and everything like that. And maybe one gender holds more wealth than the other. Like, why can't that happen? I don't know. The government should coordinate and control all aspects of no. So welfare programs, yeah. Collective ownership, no. That's not true. Wait, what? The worker, if you want to co-op, go for it, bro. I didn't. There was no questions on like, can somebody have planned economy should be down here. You had like 2 questions on collective ownership. You bums. Okay, dude. Equity and social justice. Oh, I know the questions that would have caused this. Here, let me go through it again. Watch, I'll get the ones that yeah, so this one, if I say agree, that'll put points in this, even though it doesn't, even though it shouldn't, because this has nothing to do with equity and social justice. This is just a question on if the unequal relationship between a business owner and workers in capitalist economy is inherently exploitative. But sure, it could be inherently exploitative, but then it could also be inherently exploitative in any other system. Like, why is it inherently exploitative in capitalism? Oh, well, right now, like, the owner of a company can tell you when to work and pay you a wage, whatever they demand, and like you need that job, so like you're willing to take whatever wage you can because you need that job, and blah 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 blah. Okay, well, in another system, a socialist system where they're like, hey, we need X resource, okay? So, all these people here, we've chosen you. You're gonna go work in this environment, or we need a bunch of people to go work in this environment, and well, yeah, like, so I mean, this opens up a whole Pandora's box of fucking other questions, but like, so I can think of an example of, okay, well, in capitalism, like, yeah, the boss can definitely easily exploit their workers, easy, okay, pay them less, not give them any fucking benefits, and maybe those people need that job because like they're getting paid cash, so like, illegal immigrants can work there because they're getting paid cash, but now they're being like abused at work, or like some people just need that job and they have nowhere else to go, so they take that work and they get like abused that way, blah 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 blah. But in a socialist regard, if anyone can work anywhere, right now you have a bunch of shitty jobs that nobody wants to work. How do you get those people to work that job? You could either force them, which would be inherently exploitative. Automatically, that in itself is inherently exploitative. You're literally forcing people to do work they don't want to do, right? That's the reason why you're saying that capitalism is inherently exploitative. The business owner worker relationship is inherently exploitative. Well, in a socialist system, potentially the government worker relationship is inherently exploitative because the government has the power to control where you work, because by demand. Fuck, we need more steel because we're running out of cars or whatever, or running out of well, we need to build more housing, so we need a bunch of people to go work in the lumber industry, so we just swathed up 10,000 people and put them in the lumber industry. Well, I don't want to work in the lumber industry. Oh my god, I just died because I'm not trained in this, blah blah blah, whatever. Like, that's exploitative. Right? Yeah. So I can think of other ways that something could be just as exploitative as you think the owner worker dynamic is. I can think of a million other ways that something could be just as easily exploitative. Like, how do you demand people to work a job that no one else wants to work? How do you do that in a socialist country? If there is no wages, what is the I'll have to call it this. What is the currency that incentivizes people to work in jobs that they don't otherwise want to work in? Trash collection, shit like plumbing, like city sewage plumbing, whatever. What incentivizes people to work in those industries? Well, you can force them, That's the easy way, but that's exploitive. So there goes the argument right there. So what is another way? And I just can't think of one that wouldn't be exploitative. That isn't like in somehow forcing people. Again, you can, the one I thought about is like more days off is like a way you can kind of get people to do stuff. Any other way, like, oh, you give them more goods, like, you know, you give them more, but that's just, you've now swapped money with like tickets to get more things. Like, well, you know, if they work the shit jobs, they get more, you know, tickets, and then you can use those tickets to go out and buy a PS4. Okay, well, now you've literally just swapped money for tickets. That's literally what you did. So you can't use any kind of currency. So it has to be something else. So the only thing I can really think of is like days off. You can't give somebody more benefits because everyone should have those benefits. You can't give somebody better health care. You can't give somebody better dental care, eye care, whatever, because everyone should have those in a socialist system. So the only thing I can think of is days off. But then you would have to fill more spaces for the same shit job. Right? So again, you can do early retirement, but again, then you have to fill those spots. So yeah, like maybe that works, but maybe giving days off is the way it would work. It can work out that way. I don't know. So watch, I'll go with agree here. Oh, I don't know what I put here, but I'll go with agree. I think I did the opposite accidentally because I thought I didn't say never. Oh fuck. Well, I could be. Oh, that could be it. Hold on. I'm opening up another one. I'm gonna answer everything honestly. Yeah. Yep. I answered this. I answered yes to this, and you're giving me like a Oh no. You gave me like half. That's right. Should be no such thing as private ownership of land. Economic equality. Well, I want to say yes, but what does that mean again? Does that mean everyone gets like paid the same, or does that mean everyone has like a baseline? Do you mean like there are no rich people, there are no poor people, or do you mean everyone's basic needs are taken care of, everything else I don't care about? Right? Or is it, or economic equality means anyone can get whatever job, like everyone has the same opportunity to get whichever job they want. There's no real blockades anymore. There's no race blockades. There's no blockades based on your gender or your race or your income level. You can go to school and get an education for whatever job you want. I'm sure you got like a 0 for planned economy, right? Oh no, this I said yes. I wonder if this would give me more. What could this give me more of? Oh, it would give me more needs oriented production. trying to think of something that just shouldn't be in production. I'll go with lightly disagree, just because it's like I could think of a million things that shouldn't be produced because they're dumb as fuck. But if some idiot's willing to buy them, like whatever. We should be working on ways of like educating people so they don't buy dumbass shit instead of just canceling the like broadly axing the production of that thing. They should just not. There should just be no possible way that they could ever even start production because people are smart enough not to buy those shitty products. Like we shouldn't live in a like. I wouldn't want to ban the production of like Supreme, but like at the same time, Supreme shouldn't exist, and the way that should happen is that we are well educated enough that we don't give a fuck about Supreme. Like, what the fuck would we do that? But again, I could say the same thing about fucking Pokemon cards, right? So that's why I have to disagree with that. No, this is stupid. I think that I said yeah. No, this is dumb. Oh, I would say agree to this, and I bet you this will bring out equity. Oh, this as well. Now watch, my equity score will be way higher. Yep, called it. Everything else is pretty much the same. Just my equity score is way higher because I answered how they want. Oh, and my welfare programs are way higher too. So somewhere in between these two is where I stand. Because this could be me overanalyzing the question, and this is me giving the answer I think they want to hear, basically. So somewhere in between these two is the truth. Collective ownership should probably be a little bit higher, but I guess they might be defining collective ownership differently. Like a national bank is quote unquote collective ownership to them, I think. Which I don't. That's no. A cooperative bank could be cool, right? Like everyone in the bank like owns the bank basically. I don't know how that would really work out though, but that's like not government. That is actually collective ownership. I don't know.
So have you heard the latest I don't know, you're the genius here. I'm just a common survivalist. I'd say gather some spoiled crops from the lakeside farm, then deliver them to Seville. Or the shop.
Let's go south. But yeah, somewhere in between these two, I think, is where I actually stand. Some of these equity and social justice things are kind of dumb. Because like the question of it's like the question should have just been, should men and women be considered equal? And it's like, yeah, of course. But the question was instead, well, if men and women make up half of the population each, then it makes sense that half of them have the wealth as well. So like, you know, if you're a married couple, both of you should have basically the exact same wealth. It's like, no. It's possible that if everything else, all else equal, there still may be a difference in wealth. Just based off of like, you know, whatever. Like we're never going to be completely 100% equal. So let's see what they mean by each, by the way. Collective ownership of the means of production is the core tenet that utilizes all forms of socialism. Many socialists see the capitalist free enterprise system as fundamentally exploitative, unequal, and destructive. They look to counter these effects by letting the people own the means of production in unison with the aim of diminishing inequality and the need for competition between people. Okay. Social justice refers to the view that all members of society should have equal access to political, social, and economic opportunities, regardless of their gender, race, and age, and able-bodiedness. Equity may be perceived as the political prioritization of opening doors to those who are unprivileged. Oh, so like I 100% agree with this, but that's not, one of those questions was not this at all. It was like a forced equalization, but this is equity. Like this is equity. That question wasn't about equity. That question was about equality, like wealth equality. But yeah, I 100% agree with this statement, like 100 million percent, that everyone should have the opportunity, regardless of like their yeah, all this. Yeah, that's true. That doesn't mean that wealth would be evenly distributed amongst the genders. So yeah, maybe this is just a bit more accurate in terms of like the label. Planned economy, producing services, and sometimes also prices are determined by public council instead of leaving these factors up to the market. According to socialists, the planning imposed by a central body or bodies will often be superior and more efficient than leaving these things up to the market force. Yeah, well, sadly, time and time again, they've shown to not at all be that. Let's see where I got this from. I mean, it's a dumb fuck I literally don't care about, but oh yeah, Jesus. I didn't want to get yeah, I never understood the arguments for planned economies. It's just, I don't know. Widespread guideline among socialists is the idea that profits from economic production should be distributed amongst all members of society equally. In this way, people who are successful do not merely work for themselves, but for all members of the community as well. Yeah, I think that like, yeah, I'm pretty halfway on that. That makes sense. Needs-oriented production. Many sources of production should be guided by equality and the needs of the many. Hence, the manufactured goods in socialist economy should be regulated to ensure the basic needs are met first. This prevents purchasing imbalances such as the rich splurging on expensive articles. Consumption in economies where the poor cannot afford their meals at 3 meals a day. I'm not 100% sure this is like what that means, kind of. Like, is means production just like, oh, the basic needs of, like, then I'm all on board. But I feel like, no, you want to go a little bit farther than just the basic needs of people are met, because I don't think that's enough. Because to me, the basic needs of people is pretty easy to hit, kind of. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that is a little like watered down what they actually want. Because I can think of this happening and it's still capitalism. And like apparently I'm on like a 0 here, so I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I think somewhere in between these two is fairly accurate. This one kind of gets fucked by shit, and then like, yeah, well, I mean, I do agree with this. Welfare programs, because I want the basic needs of everyone to be taken care of. Yeah. Collective ownership being higher is better. I think I like this one a little bit more. But I feel like I didn't answer a couple of questions honestly to get this. But maybe the questions are just kind of fucky. So, anyways, back to this.